Chiefs get a much-needed victory on the road in New England, Week 15, a 27-17 victory. The Chiefs improved to 9-5 and erase a 2-game skid as the last 3 weeks or 4 weeks now since the bye week was 1-3 coming in, now 2-3 after the bye for the Chiefs, which is very abnormal for an Andy Reid team, as he's been terrific off the bye. Of course, the loss to the Eagles, then the victory in Vegas, and then back-to-back losses at Green Bay and at home against Buffalo. I was lucky enough to attend that game, I guess, if you want to call it lucky. Tough loss in that game, obviously, but nonetheless, here the Chiefs are back in the win column and working their way back up the standings, trying to see if they can get back up to that number 1 spot, and could be a possibility. A win tonight for the Ravens. It doesn't look like they're going to do the Chiefs any favors, but the Chiefs by far have the easiest schedule from here on out, rather than the Dolphins and the Ravens, and they play each other, I think, the final week of the season, if I'm not mistaken. So it's going to be a tough road to get back to that number 1 seed if the Chiefs want the AFC to continue to run through Arrowhead. Of course, I think it was a couple of years ago. Yeah, I think that was 2 years ago. The Chiefs came in with maybe the 2 seed, maybe the 2 or 3, somewhere around there. But some things happened for the Chiefs to get that game at home. So, I mean, obviously there's still a possibility once we hit the playoffs. We will see, but the Ravens pretty much handily defeated Jacksonville tonight. I think it was 23-7 final score. And so, again, doesn't look like they are going to do the Chiefs any favors. The Dolphins, maybe, and maybe if they get a victory over Baltimore, if they both win out from here and they win against Baltimore, Miami still has a shot at number 1 seed as well. So all 3 teams, obviously, a lot to play for. I think Jacksonville kind of, I don't want to say knocked themselves out of that, but I think they're now 8-6 is what their record will be. So they'll be 1 game below the Chiefs. The AFC shaping out to be very wild. I kind of touched on the playoff picture last week. We'll probably touch on that again before this one is over. But just to get right into the game, I'm still not convinced on this offense. You know, honestly, this game didn't make me feel a ton better. This was an opportunity for the Chiefs definitely to kind of bolster themselves up. Okay, it's 2 games. That's actually my bad. So the Chiefs are still 1 game below the Dolphins. Dolphins 10-4, Chiefs 9-5, and then the Ravens at 11-3, number 1. They have clinched a playoff spot. They are the only ones in the AFC to have clinched a playoff spot. Meanwhile, in the NFC, of the 49ers, Eagles, and Cowboys all getting a playoff spot clinched, as now the rest of the NFC kind of fighting and duking it out, even though the NFC, there's still kind of some openings depending on what the Seahawks do in this game Monday night against Philly. We'll see. But the AFC is insanely, the AFC is insanely wide open. You Texans, Bills, Steelers, Broncos, Raiders, and the Chargers technically still in the mix. I think we can wipe that one out. But mathematically, at the moment, the Chargers still in it. But the Raiders, I think, very outside shot. Maybe the Broncos could work their way in there. But with the Texans and Bills now both up to 8-6, that's going to be tough, as you've also got the Bengals and Colts with those 2 wild card spots if the playoffs started right now. You'd have the Bengals and Colts making those 2 wild card spots with the Texans and Bills. I think the Texans right now would technically have the tiebreak over the Bills, so the Texans would be the team. But Texans and Bills are the 2 teams that are right there for that 3rd wild card spot, possibly. So to get into, I guess we went over the playoff the playoff picture already. So anyways, to get into the game, again, defense shows up. Defense does their thing, as they've done game after game this year. They have dominated. They held the Patriots to 17 points. And honestly, 7 of those points, I said it on Twitter, I put those points on the offense. And that was off of the Kadarius Toney interception. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes threw the interception, but Kadarius Toney completely aided in the interception of the ball, tipping it right back up to the defense. And then right after that, the Patriots scored a touchdown. The defense wasn't ready, and just kind of got on the field and went for it, but it did not work out. Obviously, that was I think it was a run play right up the middle, ended up being a touchdown. But a very solid win for the Chiefs. They did get a turnover of their own in that mix, with Willie Gay getting an interception, a few sacks, I want to say. We'll get into that in a minute. We'll start with the offense, though, and work our way back to the defense. But Patrick Mahomes today, 27 to 37, 305 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. One of those picks on Patrick. The other one, the Kadarius Toney one, rough interception to give up on a play that was thrown right to his target. So tough right there. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, not as big of a day on the ground. I guess last week, I can't remember what his yardage total was now off the top of my head, but this week 13 carries, 37 yards, averaging 2.8. But in the past game, he did have 4 catches for 64 yards on all 4 of his targets. Got that touchdown with that huge, amazing catch, which is the highlight of Clyde Edwards-Helaire's career. Air Hilaire, as they were saying all over social media today. So big game for Clyde in general. And honestly, I think that I'm probably in the minority here, but I would like to see Clyde stay with the Chiefs. I would like to see, depending on the price range, obviously, but with what Clyde has been, I still think that he serves as a decent role player in this offense. He knows the offense, and he does step up when the Chiefs need him to step up, I feel. And that touchdown today being a big proponent to that, because look at the plays he can make at times. Obviously not your guy that you want taking 13 carries a game, obviously, but nonetheless, I think he's a solid role player. And really, this backfield, I think, is probably one of the best Chiefs backfields in essentially the Patrick Mahomes era, with Clyde, and obviously Pacheco's hurt, and McKinnon also rounding out that running back room is, they have been fantastic. And I can't say enough great things about Jet McKinnon, and he showed up today big. He threw a touchdown pass. How about a completion for 4 yards and a touchdown? So great game by McKinnon, throwing a touchdown pass to Rashee Rice, who also had a phenomenal game. And it's very exciting to see Rashee Rice stepping up and delivering, and being the receiver that I think we all know he can be. And it takes that time, it takes that development. You're talking about a rookie wide receiver. He's about to break all of Dwayne Bowe's rookie records receiving wise for the Chiefs. 9 catches on 9 targets, and that right there, just seeing that alone is huge. Obviously, if you follow the Chiefs this season, the drops have been a huge issue, and I can't remember how many drops they had today, but it wasn't great again today. I think at one point I saw 4 drops, I think after the Kadarius Toney one happened, that ended up being a pick. So again, it's just, and Mahomes is finally showing his frustration. I think the frustration the fans have had all season long, and it's been just a tough year for Patrick Mahomes and really the competency of this wide receiver room. It's just been a difficult season to navigate, although there's still plenty of bright spots. And this team, I still wholeheartedly believe this team could win a Super Bowl this year. But they're going to have to work around those things. They're going to have to work really hard at masking all of the negative things that they have going on with them. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, 4 catches for 64 yards, I said, in a touchdown. He was the second leading receiver for the Chiefs. Travis Kelce did have 5 catches for 28 yards on 7 targets. McKinnon, 3 catches on 3 targets, 19 yards. One of them went for 6. Noah Gray, 2 catches on 2 targets for 37 yards. Justin Watson, 1 catch for 31 yards. He did get targeted 3 times. MVS and Richie James both had the exact same stat line, 1 catch on 1 target for 17 yards. And Kadarius Toney, obviously the 4 targets, 2 catches for 5 yards, and caused the interception. Blake Bell had 1 target, did not have a catch. Looking on the defensive side, Charles Omenihu came up with a sack and a forced fumble today. Jalen Watson, Derek Nottie, Drew Tranquill all also had sacks as well. Let's see, in the interception for Willie Gay, 24-yard return on that. For Willie, Creed Humphrey had a forced fumble, and I want to say, man, I cannot think of that play off the top of my head, honestly. But I do somewhat remember something around that. Either way, the defense, I won't say they have to be perfect. I won't say they have to be perfect for this offense for it to work, because there's also, so many holes in the AFC, I think. And this defense particularly, I feel like could handle a lot of the challenges some of these teams will pose. And I mean, look at the Dolphins. The Chiefs already beat the Dolphins, but obviously the trend of that game was not good, right? You score 21 points in the first half, score 0 in the second half, but the defense doesn't allow a single point. Also scores 7 points in the first half, but the defense gives up only 14 the whole game. But the offense is only able to muster 14 of their own points in that game. So who knows how that matchup goes if the Chiefs do run into the Dolphins again. There's a good chance that they'll run into the Dolphins again. So in the postseason. So what the Chiefs are going to have to do is really play perfect on offense, I think. I don't think the defense necessarily has to be perfect, but if the offense can still, just maintain, put up some points. And, this team is so much different than what it's been. And I think that's the part that freaks most people out, most Chiefs fans out the most, is just seeing how rugged that offense is. And in comparison, the offense has carried the Chiefs to these great Super Bowl runs that they've had, and this essentially dynasty that they've put together the last few years of continuing to compete at the top each year. So for this season, it's going to have to be a little bit different. And again, they have to mask some of these problems that they have with the receivers. And I think Andy has somewhat started to do it. There was a play on, I want to say, the second or third drive that was just at the goal line. And I mean, just, man, chef's kiss. It was perfect. It was perfect. It was a great play. And Andy kind of getting into his bag a little bit in the play calling, which I think gives us all hope. I think all of us are kind of waiting. Okay, Andy's not showing his hand, and that's part of the problem. But at the same time, I think Andy has really mastered this to a point where I'm not going to show my hand in the regular season, no matter what happens. We're going to show you, full throttle Chiefs play calling in January. You're not going to get it out of the Chiefs in November, December, and some of these games have been big and some of these losses have been tough. But the Chiefs are still in a great position. And now with some breathing room with the Broncos losing, and I feel like that was really my only concern, was the Broncos just keep winning and end up catching the Chiefs. I think the Chiefs could handle the Broncos. I think a lot of these top teams will handle the Broncos if they get to that point. But there's also that outside shot that the Broncos could have kept winning. The Chiefs drop one more, and all of a sudden, boom, the Broncos are right there, challenging for the AFC West. So I think at this point, you get 2 games, you kind of have a little bit of breathing room. And again, with the schedule being what it is for the Chiefs, you got the Raiders, Bengals, Chargers, all 3 backup quarterbacks. The Bengals game is really the only game that concerns me to a higher degree, just for the fact that the Chiefs like to kind of play down to their opponents. And Browning, man, he has just had a hell of a season, with the limited time that he's gotten as a backup, which is just, it's been kind of crazy to watch that guy come out and do what he's done. He's done a great job. I'm trying to look at it. Yeah, Jake Browning. I still ain't even got his name down. So, but 29 for 42 against the Vikings, 324 yards, 2 touchdowns and a pick on Saturday against the Vikings. Had a great game, led the Bengals to a victory. And so, the Bengals to me present, they're still the Bengals, and they still have a great team around Jake Browning to throw to. It just goes to show, what Burrow has got around him. So that being said, I feel, I don't want to say I feel better, but I still feel about the same. I still feel confident in this team. I still feel that this Chiefs team can be competent enough to get them to a deep playoff run. And the defense, at the end of the day, they say defense wins championships, right? And I don't think that that's been going on around here in Kansas City, but this is a team that has a defense, really even better than what they had in the early 2010s, late 2000s-ish kind of time frame. Tom Ball, Justin Houston. This kind of goes back to Chiefs defenses of the 90s during the Marty Schottenheimer era of, levels of how good this defense really is. And I do think this defense could very much so guide this team to a Super Bowl run. The thing the Chiefs are going to have to do is just kind of, I think, calm down to who they're throwing to, where they're throwing to them on the field. I think Tony needs a lot more, right around the line of scrimmage. If you're going to throw to Tony at this point, I feel like it's got to be a screen. It's got to be something, kind of maneuvering the, I can't remember what week off the top of my head it was. It might have been the game against Miami. They had this perfect little motion for Pacheco, who was in a normal running back. I pointed out on my film review that week. But Pacheco, who was in a regular running back position to the left side of Mahomes, just kind of motioned out a little bit further to the left where he was almost like in a tight end position but in the backfield. And that just gave Tony leverage over the middle of the field because the linebacker had to move over with Pacheco, open up that middle of the field. Tony comes from the right side of the field, works his way across the middle, and that's what created that big gain in the Dolphins game. Just that little movement right there. It's going to have to be intricate stuff like that to really kind of force Tony open to me at this point. And even those plays, because, the play today was right over the middle. It was the same thing like in the Lions game. Almost, and now it makes me want to go look at the film because damn near seems like it could have been the same play that he did that on, kind of going over the middle, has a ball thrown, right to him. And he just can't handle it for whatever reason. If he's, already looking ahead, waiting, to see what he's going to do after the catch. And, Tony's got amazing moves and can make you miss. But if you can't secure the ball, it doesn't matter. You're not going to get to that point. So I would like to see the Chiefs kind of try to angle Tony more towards a lot of stuff around the line of scrimmage. And, obviously Rashee Rice is wide receiver number one. Rashee Rice needs to be fed the ball. I feel like between Travis Kelce, Noah Gray, Justin Watson at times, but I do have more confidence in Justin Watson than I would in MVS or Sky Moore at this point. Or Tony for that matter, just kind of talking about that. But your top three guys, Kelce, or two tight ends, Kelce and Gray, and then you've got Rice. I feel like right now it's hard to trust anybody else. Work McKinnon in more because that's one thing that was talked about this past week. That I heard was McKinnon kind of wiped out a lot of deficiencies for the offense last year, and I don't see why he couldn't do that this year as well. And maybe starting him a little bit later because he really got going with that the last 6 games of the season. He scored a receiving touchdown in every single game. And McKinnon had an insane year last year, and he hasn't been, as involved with the offense this year. But even Clyde, I think getting Clyde involved more in the passing game, I feel like he, from the moment that he was drafted, me personally, I thought, okay, this guy was going to be perfect to, really spread out the field, do what the Chiefs want to do, pass the ball more and more. And now you've got a running back that is going to come catching the ball out of the backfield. And it feels like they really tried to just narrow Clyde to really just a running back role of just handing the ball off. He hasn't been involved in the pass game a ton, it seems like. And, when he does get involved, that's when he does his best work. And even like today, in retrospect of going back and looking at the stats, I thought he probably had more rushing yards than he did. I think what I said, it was 30. I'll go back and look at it. But he was averaging 2.8 per carry. He did not have a great day running the football. 13 carries, 37 yards is what it was total. So Clyde didn't have a great day, but 64 yards through the air and a touchdown, that'll do it for you. So if you can get some of these running backs more involved in the pass game, they're just going to have to figure out different ways to kind of, disguise the fact that their pass game is terrible. The receivers are terrible. And I know that's harsh to say, but at this point, 15 weeks into the season, I feel like this receiving core is giving me nothing but negative things to say, and I think most of Chiefs Kingdom would agree and think the same thing. So today was more of the same. It's not the world beating that I would have hoped they would have put on the Patriots. A 3-11 team now with the Patriots after the loss to the Chiefs. You would like to see them go out there and absolutely smash a team like that, like the Raiders did to the Chargers. Or something like that. Obviously, it doesn't have to be that effect. But if, we could have seen maybe a 30-point performance from the offense, I think would have been kind of what I was looking for to, say, okay, we can still be, a top offense. The Chiefs can still, put up 30 plus points, 35 plus points, somewhere around in there. I'm not asking for a 40, 50 point game. I'm just asking for putting up more than 30, which used to be kind of the norm around Kansas City. So the fact we didn't get that, the fact we still got the lackluster play from the offense, the turnovers from the offense, as well as the defense is the bright spot. The defense has shined all year long, and it's crazy at this point to think the defense is, I don't want to say overlooked, but almost overlooked because of how frustrating the offense has been compared to what we've seen. So it's crazy to see that. I don't want to say nobody's talking about the defense, because this is one of the best defenses in the NFL. And, I've been talking about it all season. I know a lot of people have been talking about it all season. But once you get to week 15, this offense is still struggling, still not being able to do what they've been able to do in the past. I feel like it's just been such a bigger topic that almost outshines how good that defense has been. And, it's never a good thing. But I think this team still has a shot to get it together. But they have to do it in the next 3 weeks. This week kind of prolonged them. I know going into this game, I kind of said, this is their last chance. This is their last chance to put it all together. But I do think this kind of prolonged things just because they did all the right things. They still made the mistakes, but they did do all the right things, and they were able to move the ball. And I think almost on that drive, Andy called certain plays just because that screenplay was just, there was nobody on the other side of the field for Clyde. That screenplay was one of the best drawn-up plays of the game. Between that and the goal line play that they scored the touchdown on, I think that was the one that McKinnon threw the touchdown pass to Rashee Rice there. So insane play call, and almost sucks that he put it on film. But I think Andy Reid was just done. He was over it. He was like, all right, we have to put together a drive. We have to score a touchdown, and just all the same things I think we're all saying here in Chiefs Kingdom of, at some point there's got to be some kind of, I feel like we've seen it, right? We've seen it. And on that drive, I said it on Twitter too, was, this is what this offense could be. They're just lacking consistency. And at the end of the day, this offense can still be explosive. This offense can still put up a lot of points, but they got to get over the mistakes. And all the little mistakes. The offsides penalty to Tony, it's unacceptable. All the penalties on Jawan Taylor. And I think that most people are a little too tough on Taylor. I know he's been the most penalized player in the league, but he really hasn't been that bad. Other than the penalties, you take those penalties away. And I think that's more of like a mental mistake, mental error, and, things that you can improve on and get better. I think Jawan Taylor will be a much different player next year once we're out of this season, kind of get that cycled out and get to next year. Now, that's where I'm kind of worried about Patrick Mahomes, is where he's getting frustrated. He's getting noticeably frustrated in these games. More and more so. And if you get to that point where it's like you go into the game just dreading, you know you're going to get to that point where you're going to be frustrated again, and it just weighs on you. And it seems like week by week, it started in week 1, and the same things are happening in week 15. So now with 3 weeks left, you just can't let that creep in to be the mindset of the team. So that's the one thing that I'm really nervous for. It's the possible, that just kind of creeping in and just kind of being how the team feels, in a sense of, we're going to run into issues. But these last 3 weeks, 2 divisional games, there's a really good chance for the Chiefs to kind of gauge themselves, get them ready for the playoffs. They have to win all 3 of them. Absolutely have to win all 3 of them. They need to clean some stuff up still. So they still have a little bit of time to clean up a little bit more. As long as they can get good enough to beat all these other teams is really the only goal, right? And I don't think that, especially in the AFC right now, there's a lot of problems. And even now, mind you, I do think the Bills are coming on hot, because what they did to Dallas today, I think 31-10 was the score. After winning against the Chiefs last week, it seems like, you get that bump, you get that rub, essentially, after beating the Chiefs, and all of a sudden your team has turned around. Look what the Broncos, since they beat the Chiefs, what they've been doing. The Bills now, and we'll see if that continues the next few weeks. But either way, I do think the Chiefs have enough to beat every team in the AFC. The Ravens is the one big question mark, because they're just playing smart football. They're playing well. They're not making a ton of mistakes, and that's the kind of football you got to play to win. and win championships. Although the Chiefs have proved, this theory wrong, I feel like, just because it seems like last year, all season long, I was banging the table saying they got to stop turning the ball over, and it seemed like they kept turning the ball over. But somehow, some way, they found themselves to the finish line and picked up another Lombardi. So I think that it's a very real chance that it can still happen, and the Chiefs still do have a shot. Again, some things to clean up. But that's really it from me. Just wanted to get on here, kind of talk about this weekend's game, and we'll probably get another one in. Looking forward to next week or at some point. But either way, I hope you enjoyed this podcast. If you listened all the way through, hit that like, check that subscribe button over on YouTube, as well as follow on Spotify, Apple Podcast, as well, wherever you get your podcast. PapaShowKnows.substack.com as well. But either way, we'll see you next time. Go Chiefs!